He comes for me in my dreams, whispering, urgent. You're not going to believe me. No one ever does. But I have to tell someone. It's the only way I can prove I'm still real. It always starts the same, with the water and the man with no face. Part 1. The recurring nightmare. It's not a violent dream, not at first. It's quiet. That's what makes it so unsettling. The only sound is water lapping against a shore I can't see. The sky is a bruised, starless purple. I'm standing at the edge of this ocean, a lake, I can never tell. The water is black and perfectly still, like a sheet of glass stretching into a foggy, infinite horizon. And I'm always alone, except for him. He's there every single time. Standing on the other side of the water, just a silhouette against the gloom. I can never gauge the distance. Sometimes he seems 100 yards away. Other times he feels like he's right there, just on the other side of that impossibly dark water. He's tall, wearing what look like old, heavy clothes. But his face, he doesn't have one. It's not blurry or hidden in shadow. It's just blank. A smooth, featureless oval, like a worn-out stone. My therapist called it a recurring dream. She said it likely stemmed from unresolved anxiety and told me to keep a dream journal. For the first few weeks, he just stood there, a silent, faceless statue in my own private twilight. I'd stare back at him, a cold dread creeping into my chest, until the pure wrongness of it all finally jolted me awake. My heart would be hammering my ribs, the sheets damp with cold sweat. But then the morning light would trickle in. I'd hear the traffic outside and the fear would fade. It was just a dream, a weird, persistent, and deeply unsettling dream, but just a dream. I started the journal, like she suggested. Night 1, the man was at the shore, didn't move. Night 3, same dream, water still. Night 7, he was there again. It felt colder. For a month, that was my routine. Have the dream, wake up terrified, write it down, and force myself to get on with my day. I tried to rationalize it. I told myself what the books say, that a faceless person symbolizes uncertainty in your life, that water represents the subconscious. It was just my brain processing stress from a new job and a recent breakup. It had to be normal. But on the first night of the second month, something changed. In the dream, he slowly lifted his arm. It was a deliberate movement, an invitation or a warning. When I woke up, the first thing I noticed was the cold. Not the usual post-nightmare chill, but a deep, penetrating cold that settles in your bones. My thermostat read a comfortable 70 degrees, but I was shivering. I could see my own breath. And on the hardwood floor next to my bed, there was a small, dark puddle of water. Part 2. The cracks in reality. I stared at that puddle for a solid minute, my mind refusing to make the connection. Condensation from the window? A leak? My hand trembled as I wiped it up with a sock. It was just water. It had to be a coincidence. But the cold clung to me all day, a phantom chill that no amount of coffee or extra layers could shake. I was exhausted, my thoughts moving through a thick fog. That night, I was terrified to go to sleep. I downed coffee until I was jittery, turned on every light in my apartment, and sat on the couch with a book I couldn't read. But around 3 a.m., my eyelids got heavy. I started slipping into that state between awake and asleep, where brief, dreamlike flashes flicker behind your eyes. I was losing the fight. And then I was there again. The bruised sky, the black, endless water, and him. He was closer this time, so much closer. I could almost make out the texture of his coat, dark and heavy with moisture. His featureless face was fixed on me, a blank slate that felt more judgmental than any expression could. He lifted his hand again, and this time, he beckoned. One slow, deliberate curl of his fingers. Come here. The terror was so intense it felt like I was drowning right there on the shore. I woke up with a gasp, tangled in my blankets. The apartment was silent, the lights still blazing. For a second I was just relieved, but then I heard it. a soft, rhythmic sound from the corner of my room. Drip, drip, drip. My blood ran cold. I slowly slid out of bed. The sound was coming from the window. I crept toward it, my heart pounding against my ribs. The window was shut, locked tight, but on the floor right under it, a dark, wet patch was spreading across the wood, and in the middle of the patch were two perfect, soaking wet footprints. They were big, like a man's boot. They led from the window a few feet into my room, and then they just stopped, as if whoever made them vanished into thin air. This wasn't my mind playing tricks. This wasn't a leak. My dream wasn't staying in my head anymore. It was bleeding into my world. The fear wasn't just for the night. It was my constant companion. I started second-guessing everything. Was that dark shape in my peripheral vision a hallucination from no sleep? Or was it him? Was the creak of a floorboard just the old building settling? Or was it him, testing his weight on my reality? I went down an internet rabbit hole at 2 a.m, fueled by desperation. I searched for everything I could think of. Recurring dream faceless man. Dream entity crossing over. Water spirit. I found stories about shadow people and sleep paralysis demons. I read about the Mora from Slavic folklore, a spirit that presses on your chest, and the Baku from Japan that eats nightmares. But none of it fit. This wasn't just a feeling or a presence. This was physical. This was water on my floor and footprints in my bedroom. The line between my world and his was dissolving. If you've ever felt that chill run down your spine in the middle of the night, or seen something out of the corner of your eye that shouldn't be there, hit that like button. And if you want to hear what happens next, make sure you subscribe, because the story isn't over. The nights are only getting longer. Part 3, The Blurring Worlds. The next 2 days were a blur of caffeine and creeping horror. Sleep was the enemy. To sleep was to let him get closer, to give him a better grip on my world. I tried everything, cold showers, pacing my living room, but you can only fight your own body for so long. My thoughts unraveled. I'd find myself just staring at a wall, the thread of my thought completely gone. Things started to warp. The coat on the back of my door would look like a tall, standing figure for a split second. I knew these were just visual distortions, symptoms of severe sleep deprivation, but knowing the science didn't make it one bit less terrifying. On the third night, huddled on my sofa, reality finally fractured. It didn't shatter, it just sort of dissolved. I noticed a dampness spreading on the wall behind my TV, a dark, ugly stain like bleeding ink. Then another one appeared on the ceiling. I could hear that faint lapping sound again, as if the whole apartment was underwater. The air got heavy, thick with the smell of wet dirt and rot. I scrambled to my feet with a scream caught in my throat. My living room was changing. The floorboards darkened, slick with moisture. A thick fog rolled in from under the door, swallowing the furniture and dimming the lamps. It was the fog from my dream. The world outside my window had vanished, replaced by that same bruised purple twilight. My apartment wasn't my apartment anymore. It was the shoreline. And there he was. He wasn't across an ocean. He was standing by my bookshelf, less than 10 feet away. He was solid. He was real. I could see the coarse, dark fabric of his long coat, glistening as water dripped onto my floor. His smooth, blank face was pointed at me, an empty space that held more pure malice than I could ever imagine. He took a step, his boot making a squelching sound on the soaked floor. My mind, stretched thin from fear and sleeplessness, finally snapped. I didn't scream. I couldn't. I was frozen, trapped in a waking nightmare. This has to be psychosis, I thought, a complete break from reality. I'm hallucinating. But the deep, unnatural cold pouring off him felt so real. The stench of stagnant water was overwhelming. He took another step, then another. Slow, unhurried. He had all the time in the world. My world. He tilted his head slightly, a gesture of curiosity, or maybe ownership. This thing born from my subconscious was here, in my living room, studying me. What did he want? Was he a ghost? A tulpa? Just a figment of my own madness? He was only a few feet away. I could see now that his sleeves were empty. There were no hands. He raised one of those empty cuffs, and the fog swirled around it. The water on the floor began to rise, cold and shockingly real around my ankles. It wasn't a puddle anymore. It was a tide, pulling me toward him. He was here to drag me under for good. I had to do something. Backing away, I stumbled over the arm of my sofa, the last piece of a reality that wasn't real anymore. Part 4. The Unsettling End. I fell backward, my head hitting the floor, hard. The world exploded in a flash of white, then went black. When I came to, the first thing I was aware of was the blinding sunlight. It was cutting sharp, clean lines across my living room. I was on the floor, my head throbbing. I sat up, aching all over, and looked around. The apartment was normal. The walls were dry, the fog was gone, the floor was spotless. No water, no footprints, no sign of him. It was morning. I had fallen asleep. I had slept all the way through the night and into the next day. The relief was so immense it felt like a physical weight lifting off my chest. I started to laugh, this ragged, hysterical sound in the quiet room. It was all a hallucination, a terrifying, all-encompassing hallucination brought on by exhaustion and fear. I spent the day in a daze of pure relief. I took a long, hot shower and promised myself I would fix my sleep schedule, see my therapist again. I was going to get better. The nightmare was over. That evening, as the sun went down, I felt a calm I hadn't known in months. I walked into the bathroom to brush my teeth, ready for a real, peaceful night of sleep. I flicked on the light and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked pale and worn out with dark circles under my eyes, but it was me. I was real. I managed a small, tired smile. But as I did, something in my reflection flickered. It was almost nothing. I leaned closer, my heart giving one single, hard thud. I stared into my own eyes, searching, and for a split second, a horrible, gut-wrenching moment, my reflection wasn't mine. My features blurred and smoothed over into a blank, featureless oval, just like his. I stumbled back from the mirror, breath catching in my throat. I squeezed my eyes shut, then snapped them open again. It was my face, just me, a trick of the light, a side effect of the psychosis. That's all it was. It had to be. But as I stand here now, with the apartment filling up with shadows, one cold, terrifying thought keeps circling in my mind. He didn't come to drag me into his world. He came to take mine, and I don't know if I ever really woke up.